Good morning and welcome back, Trinidad and Tobago. Well, I'm sure you will appreciate this segment, particularly because of the economic situation, retrenchment, and all of that. We are talking about the psychology of money management. And in studio, we have psychology lecturer turned writer, Mr. Imo Bakari. Good morning. How are you?
Pleasant morning to you, Ms. Barrett, and all of Trinidad and Tobago.
Now, we'd like to know, what is the psychology of money management exactly?
Well, first and foremost, anything pertaining to money, there is a psychology driving it, right? First of all, let us give a very simple definition of psychology without being too technical, the study of thinking and behavior. And if you have to use money, your perspective on it is a critical factor in determining how you treat with it, right? So from that very simple point of view, psychology is immediately at work, because your very perspective, your attitude, your thoughts about money could very well determine where you are at financially, all right? As you are well aware, we are living in very trying times. People are being retrenched. There's a lot of fear and uncertainty among many workers. So again, if fear is overwhelming, fear is a natural emotion, but if it is overwhelming, it can certainly paralyze one's ability to act in a clear and decisive manner, all right? How can we manage such fears? I always advocate that you do not wait to be faced with retrenchment, but even when times are going good, you should consider what talents that you possess that you can transform into some kind of income producing asset. Because what happens with the average worker in Trinidad and Tobago is that from the job, that's the income window, and almost all of the income goes out through the outdoor window, right? Taxes, utility bills, groceries, insurance. So the principle is you should pay yourself first, but most of us pay bills first, all right? So if you could pay yourself first, no matter what amount you work for, you'll be applying a different psychology in terms of ensuring that over time you could still generate some level of savings. However, we are faced with a situation where banks make enormous profits and they pay very little interest, and they charge for every conceivable service. So, quoting Myron Golden in his book From the Trash Man to the Cash Man, Rule 72, I don't know if you ever heard about that before. Rule 72 is the formula they use to work out compound interest, or the time value of money. And let us use 3% that banks pay, which we know they don't. In most cases, it's under 1%. But if we use 3% and you divide 72 by 3, it will take you 24 years for that 3% to double. They use your own money and they give you a credit card and charge you 18 to 24%. Using the rule 72, you divide 72 by 24, it's taking them 3 years for their money to double. And for your money to double, it's taking you 24 years, right? For a salary deduction, $10 for everyone. Every check passing through the bank, $7. For paying your own credit card with your own money, $14. Any transaction over the counter. So there's a serious need for citizens to review their psychology, their thinking, attitude, and behavior towards money in terms of how they save. If you look at credit unions, my credit union, Antilles Credit Union, we paid a dividend of 5%. Way above what the banks pay, right? A lot of banks paying 0.5. So, as an option for saving, the credit unions might not be able to provide you with an array of cards, but it's certainly a higher rate of return on your investment by utilizing the credit union. So I want to make a plug that that's an option for people to consider.
So let's talk, apart from saving, one important point that you raised there is investing into yourselves and harnessing skills. But where do persons find time to study, especially if it is that they have a full-time job and they have a family at home?
Well, oftentimes the perspective on education is very limited. And as Golan said in his book, a lot of poor persons, they value formal education over self-education. And he made the point, rich persons invest a lot in self-education. They gather seminar experience. They learn things that they didn't learn in school. They listen to tapes, which he did. But he said he wanted to become rich, although he was poor, and he studied what the rich do, right? Most of the rich, they own businesses, and they value their time. Now, he made a very telling point that we often say that time is money, and many people believe that.
Yeah.
And he did a very simple analysis. He said, if you run out of money, how can you get some? Tell me, Vanna.
If I run out of money, I would probably try to do an odd job somewhere.
Odd job, you may dip into your savings, you could borrow. And he made a telling point. If you run out of time, what is the situation? There's no chance of making money. So he said a lot of poor persons who believe in holding a job, they trade lots of their time for a little money. And the rich who value their time so much, they will pay you for doing what they do not want to do. Why it's making the profit. So you see, the psychology involved here is having a different perspective, even with time, and how best to make use of your time. So in these times, we need to dig deeply and really analyze how we are proceeding, recognizing that our very attitudes and thoughts towards money are very significant. For example, you have heard this saying, money is evil.
Yes.
And you have heard that? And people really...
Actually, love of money.
Right, the love of money, however you spin
evil.
it.
Yeah.
But anything that is evil, will you want it?
No.
Or associate with it? So, we need to change our concept, because the money itself, according to Andre Worrell in The Guardian, in the Business Guardian, is a neutral commodity. All right? But the attitude and behavior of persons and how they acquire it will say something about the person, but not the commodity itself. The commodity itself remains neutral. But the psychology applied to it could make the whole pursuit of it very detrimental.
I want to talk about the current economic situation with retrenchment of workers. A lot of persons are just home. Do you think it's the ideal time to really look at diversification of the economy in terms of should they start a garden, should they send out resumes? What's your advice?
Well, the point about it, from a logical point of view, a diversified economy is necessary, I'll be 53 years this year, and long before that number of years, the discussion on diversification has been taking place. It is not an overnight process. It will require serious planning, serious effort, serious commitment, serious strategic interventions, but of course, it is necessary. So coming back to the retrenched workers, if you had a limited view in terms of feeling safe with your job, because no job is safe. An employer could always tell you,
very true,
time to go. So even when times are good, people should think long term in terms of trying to see how they can transform what they do, what talent they possess. Of course, it should meet some kind of need, because for a business to succeed, it must be satisfying an existing need. You might have an idea, but does it match some need? All right, and then of course they say the need may exist, but the power to buy, which is challenged now. But you can't throw your hands up in the air. For example, to use another type of example from the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. All right, there's a guy who approached a big businessman to be a partner.
Right.
He didn't have a cent. He didn't know exactly how it will pan out, but he was definite in his purpose and determination. And there was an offer to sell the Edison dictating machines, which the salesman found to be very difficult to do. He took up the opportunity and he scored big time, Then there's another example again where, persistence,
Yes.
Persistence are an attribute that people must possess in good or bad time. A definiteness of purpose, a burning desire. Because the psychologists have a saying that when one is really determined to achieve something, it has a way of making an appearance.
On that note, I would like to raise this topic, this issue. There are persons who cannot save for the life of them. They cannot save. I even know of someone who went to a pastor to ask him to pray for him because every time the money comes, he has to see something to buy it. He's actually hunting for something to buy. And he believes it's probably a spiritual thing or even a psychological thing. What do you have to say
again,
to persons like that?
Psychology at work, and the psychology sometimes is not only driven from within the individual. For example, I am on television right now. Television is driven by advertisements. And advertisements have a way of putting money in people's heads that they don't have. And sometimes, an advertisement is not just to buy the product or service, but they make a lot of appeals. And emotional, they appeal to your emotions, your feelings, your mood.
So how do you work around that?
Well,
avoid looking at television. Goldon in his book said anybody who is financially challenged should throw away the television because there are a lot of subliminal messages that influence people. Studies have shown that exposure to a few seconds of information and hours after, they could have made connections. So, literally speaking, I'm not telling you to throw away your television, but be aware of how you are influenced below your level of consciousness. That is one approach. And the other strategy, if you pay yourself first, if savings is the first item on the budget, in that way I should save, no matter how small. Or even do a standing order where you have no control.
Right, so in that way, you could save.
Yeah.
But you have to change your thinking, change your attitude, change your approach. All right?
Okay. It was a pleasure chatting with you, of
So
course.
just to mention to
the
public that there was a seminar under this very theme held on the 19th at the Global Knowledge Institute, Lightpole 54, Moses John Avenue, Point Lego, Point 410. And this seminar will be repeated. Hopefully, Vuna will invite me again to talk about it on the 14th of October
I'll take note of.
at the Global Knowledge Institute. And it will be an all-day seminar from 9 to 2:30. And the entrance fee will be $750. So you could get much more, and you could also contact me at 778-5141, 778-5141, or email at leadershipwithadifference@gmail.com.
All right, so that's in October, and this is the book,
Right,
Conversations.
this is a recent book that was, I was in an interview here last year. But probably I could just read a piece just to end off if time permits.
All right, we just have a few seconds, do it.
2 seconds? All right. Well, the piece is entitled Money. I'm in a hurry, and I'm not prepared to have mercy when it comes to my money. It isn't funny because for many days I went hungry to preserve my money. You spend as you please, and now you are going down on bended knees asking for my money, please.
Wow.
Due to time, I wouldn't read the whole part.
That was great.
But this is all relevant to the psychology of wise money management. So thanks again, Vuna.
Thank you for having us. Hopefully in October, if it's not CNMG, we'll have you on TTT.
Thank you very much.
We take a short break. We return with more. Stay tuned.